part of the Institute to go through all the great work you're doing around the world. As Aisha was saying, you come from many different parts of the world. You're also doing actually extraordinary amount of achievement, change in some of the most difficult parts of the world. So just let me say publicly, whilst some of the media hear how proud I am of everything that you do. And we'll have a chance over the next 3 days to discuss it in detail. But now, this is a more frank assessment of what's just happened in our country in the last few weeks. And I know many of you come from countries whose politics is pretty crazy, but we've actually, in that competition, we're way out ahead. So there you go. This election was no ordinary defeat for Labour. It marks a moment in history. The choice for Labour is to renew itself as a serious, non-conservative competitor for power in British politics, or retreat from such an ambition, in which case, over time, it will be replaced. But that is the starkness of the choice. This election can be analysed in conventional ways, and here it does not take political genius to work out what happened. I feel deeply for those good Labour MPs and candidates who lost through no fault of their own, and the thousands of party workers and volunteers who, as I know well, are the backbone of the party. And of course, Brexit was an issue. It was a Brexit general election, which was why it was a cardinal error for Labour ever to agree it. But an already difficult situation was made impossible by the failure to take a clear position and to stick to it. Now, I take very seriously the argument that we deserted or disrespected our working class voters by reopening the referendum result. But the problem with this position is that there was no way of uniting the country over Brexit. Britain is deeply divided over it. Now that Brexit will happen, we must make the best of it, and the country must come together. But until the decision was settled by the election, as unfortunately it has been, if Labour had gone for leave, it would simply have alienated the other half of the nation that opposed Brexit, as well as the vast bulk of party members. Post-election polling shows that between 2017 and 2019, we lost only a small number of voters who were leave, and all the way through, we had more than double the number of Remain voters. And actually, the biggest percentage fall in Labour voters between 2017 and 2019 was amongst young people, and they were probably dismayed by the ambiguity of the party over a Brexit they detested. What we should have done, following June 2016, is accepted the result, said it was for the government to negotiate an agreement, but reserved our right to critique the agreement, and should it fail to be a good deal for the country, advocate that the final decision should rest with the people. Ultimately, yes, we might have lost the most ardent Brexit support, but I believe with different leadership, we would have kept much of our vote in traditional Labour areas, whilst benefiting from the fact that even in those areas, the majority of those voting Labour were actually Remain. Instead, we pursued a path of almost comic indecision, alienated both sides of the debate, leaving our voters without guidance or leadership. The absence of leadership on what was obviously the biggest question facing the country then reinforced all the other doubts about Jeremy Corbyn. What is important is to understand why his leadership was so decisively rejected. This is not about Jeremy Corbyn as a person. I've no doubt he's someone of deeply held and sincere beliefs who stayed true to them under harsh attack. But politically, people saw him as fundamentally opposing what Britain and Western countries stand for. He personified politically an idea, a brand of quasi-revolutionary socialism, mixing far-left economic policy with deep hostility to Western foreign policy, which never has appealed to traditional Labour voters, never will appeal to them and represented for them a combination of misguided ideology and terminal ineptitude that they found insulting.